The silence in our bedroom had become overwhelming, an uninvited presence that filled the space. It wasn't the peaceful kind of silence that comes with comfort and understanding. No, this silence was different. It was cold, empty, and heavy, a void where love and closeness had once existed. My husband, John, lay beside me, his back to me, his steady breathing the only sound breaking the stillness. I studied his face in sleep, the familiar features now seeming foreign to me. Where I once saw a lover, a partner, I now saw a stranger, a man lost in his own thoughts. Our marriage, once full of passion and laughter, now felt like a faded memory. The closeness we shared had worn thin over time. The spark that once brought us together had long since burned out, replaced by the dull routine of everyday life. We moved through the motions, morning coffee, evening meals, brief kisses, but the deep connection that once bound us was gone. Sex had turned into a task, a mere obligation, rather than a moment of shared joy. John, once full of life and energy, had become a quiet presence beside me, a man I no longer recognized. Eyes still dark, his expression unreadable. "I know it sounds extreme," he said softly, almost apologetically, "but maybe it's the only way to bring us back." His words hung in the air, heavy with a tension I couldn't escape. I felt my heart race, my chest tightening as if the room itself had closed in around me. The idea, the sheer audacity of it, was something I couldn't grasp, couldn't accept. My mind screamed, but no sound escaped my lips. I opened my mouth, struggling to find words, but none came. Only the thudding of my heart filled the silence. "I don't know what to say, John," I finally whispered, my voice shaky, fragile like glass. "I don't know if I can. I don't even know if I want to." His face softened slightly, the weight of his desire clashing with the confusion and betrayal swirling within me. We were still caught in that moment, suspended between what had been and what he thought might revive us. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized, no amount of external spice could fix the hollow emptiness between us. Expression, a mixture of vulnerability and desperation. "I know it sounds crazy," he admitted, "but I think it could work. It would be a way to see you desire again, to see that spark return to your eyes." I stared at him, speechless. The idea was so preposterous, so utterly degrading that I could barely comprehend it. My husband, the man I had vowed to love and cherish, was suggesting I sleep with another man for his own pleasure. Fury swelled within me, choking my voice. "You want me to sleep with someone else so you can watch?" He flinched at my harsh words. No, not like that. I wouldn't want to watch. It's not about that. It's about rekindling our connection, about reminding us of what it means to truly desire each other." His words washed over me, leaving me cold and numb. Rekindle our connection? How could this possibly help? It felt like a betrayal, a violation of everything we were supposed to be. Yet, as I lay in the darkness, the seed of his suggestion began to take root. The idea, however abhorrent, was strangely intriguing. Forbidden, dangerous, and undeniably taboo, it was a forbidden fruit tempting me with the promise of the unknown. I pushed the thought away, disgusted with myself. How could I even consider such a thing? I was a wife, a mother, a respectable woman. This was not who I was. But the seed of curiosity had been planted, and it grew with insidious speed. The more I tried to suppress it, the more it flourished, a dark and dangerous bloom in the arid wasteland of my marriage. John's preposterous suggestion continued to haunt me, a persistent whisper in the back of my mind. I tried to dismiss it, to bury it beneath the weight of my daily routine, but the more I fought it, the more it grew, a defiant weed sprouting in the parched soil of my discontent. The idea of sleeping with another man, of exploring my own sexuality beyond the confines of my marriage, was both terrifying and exhilarating. It was a forbidden fruit, ripe and tantalizing, whispering promises of forbidden pleasures. One afternoon, while browsing an online dating site, an act of rebellion in itself, I stumbled upon his profile. His name was Marcus, and his picture radiated an effortless charisma. He was tall, dark, and strikingly handsome, with eyes that held a smoldering intensity that sent shivers down my spine. His profile was brief, enigmatic. He described himself as an artist, a free spirit, a seeker of truth and beauty. There was a raw, untamed quality about him that both intrigued and intimidated me. Hesitantly, I sent him a message, a simple hello that felt both bold and utterly insignificant. To my surprise, he responded almost immediately, his message warm and engaging. Over the next few days, we exchanged a series of messages, our conversations flowing with an unexpected ease. He was witty, insightful, and surprisingly perceptive. He seemed to see beyond the carefully constructed facade I presented to the world, to glimpse the woman beneath. As our online conversations deepened, a strange excitement began to stir within me. The thought of meeting him, of experiencing his touch, sent a thrill of anticipation through my veins. I found myself fantasizing about his hands on my skin, his lips on mine, a forbidden dance of passion. One evening, he suggested we meet for coffee. I agreed, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. The anticipation was agonizing, a delicious torment that both excited and terrified me. The day of our meeting arrived, and I found myself meticulously preparing, choosing an outfit that was both alluring and understated. As I drove to the cafe, my hands trembled on the steering wheel. What if he was a disappointment? What if I was? When I finally saw him sitting by the window, my breath caught in my throat. He was even more impressive in person. His smile was captivating, his eyes sparkling with an intelligent curiosity. Our conversation flowed effortlessly, punctuated by moments of intense eye contact that made my knees weak. He was a fascinating man, articulate and passionate, with a depth that I found both intriguing and unsettling. As the afternoon wore on, I found myself drawn to him in a way I hadn't expected. There was an undeniable chemistry between us, a spark that ignited with every touch, every shared glance. Finally, as the sun began to set, he leaned closer, his eyes searching mine. "I want to see you again," he murmured, his voice husky with desire. My heart leapt into my throat. I want to see you too," I whispered, my voice barely audible. He smiled a slow, predatory smile that sent shivers down my spine. "Good," he said, his voice a low growl, "because I have something in mind." The next few days were a whirlwind of anticipation. John, oblivious to the storm brewing within me, continued with his mundane routine, unaware of the revolution taking place within his own home. I, on the other hand, was consumed by a forbidden desire, a thrilling sense of danger that pushed me to the edge of my comfort zone. Marcus, true to his word, had a proposition. He suggested a discreet rendezvous at a secluded cabin he owned outside the city. He wanted to experiment. The idea terrified me, yet it also excited me in ways I couldn't begin to understand. It was a leap into the unknown, a chance to explore the depths of my own sexuality, to experience a forbidden pleasure that promised to shatter the monotony of my existence. The night of the rendezvous arrived, and I found myself driving to the cabin, my hands trembling on the steering wheel. The moonless sky was a canvas of inky blackness, the forest surrounding the cabin a menacing silhouette against the night. As I approached the cabin, a wave of apprehension washed over me. What was I doing? What if I regretted this? But as I stepped inside, all my doubts vanished. The cabin was rustic yet elegant, a sanctuary of warmth and intimacy. Marcus stood by the fireplace, a glass of wine in his hand, his eyes gleaming with a predatory intensity. He greeted me with a warm smile, his eyes sweeping over me with an appreciation that made my blood run cold. "You look incredible," he murmured, his voice a low growl. I felt a shiver crawl down my spine. He took my hand, his touch sending a jolt of electricity through my body. As he led me deeper into the cabin, I felt a strange sense of detachment, as if I were watching myself from a distance. The night that followed was a blur of sensations, a whirlwind of passion and exploration that pushed the boundaries of my imagination. Marcus was a lover like I had never known, his touch both gentle and demanding, his kisses a fiery explosion of desire. He explored my body with a reverence that bordered on worship, awakening a sensuality I never knew I possessed. I surrendered to him completely, lost in the intoxicating haze of pleasure, my inhibitions melting away with each touch. The experience was both terrifying and exhilarating, a forbidden dance that pushed me to the very edge of myself. I felt alive, vibrant, more alive than I had felt in years. As the first rays of dawn filtered through the windows, we lay entwined, our bodies still trembling from the aftermath of our passion. I looked at Marcus, his face illuminated by the morning light, and for the first time, I saw something more than just a lover. I saw a kindred spirit, a soul that resonated with my own. The aftermath of that night left me reeling. My body ached with a delicious exhaustion, my mind buzzing with a heady cocktail of emotions. I felt exhilarated, liberated, yet strangely adrift. Familiar moorings of my marriage, once so secure, now felt distant and uncertain. The encounter with Marcus had awakened a dormant part of myself, a sensuality I had long forgotten. It had been a thrilling transgression, a forbidden dance that had pushed me to the very edge of myself. But the repercussions were swift and unexpected. The encounter with Marcus had opened a Pandora's box within me, unleashing a torrent of emotions I had long suppressed. My marriage, already teetering on the brink, now felt like a fragile house of cards, ready to crumble at the slightest touch. John, oblivious to the seismic shifts occurring within me, continued his oblivious existence. He came home from work, greeted me with a perfunctory kiss, and settled into his armchair, lost in the glow of the television screen. I would sit across from him, pretending to listen to his mundane anecdotes, while my mind raced with thoughts of Marcus. I would replay the events of that night in my mind, savoring the memory of his touch, the intensity of his gaze. The more I tried to suppress these thoughts, the more they consumed me. They seeped into my dreams, haunting me with vivid images of forbidden pleasures. I would wake up in the morning, my body trembling with a yearning I couldn't name. The need to see Marcus became an obsession. I craved his touch, his laugh, the intensity of his gaze. I found myself making excuses to leave the house, to linger at the coffee shop down the street, hoping to catch a glimpse of him. One afternoon, while running errands, I spotted him across the street, walking hand in hand with a woman. My heart plummeted. He had a life outside of me, a life that didn't involve stolen moments and clandestine meetings. The feeling of rejection was a bitter pill to swallow. I felt foolish, desperate, and utterly alone. But the desire for him remained, a persistent ache that gnawed at me from within. I couldn't resist the pull, the intoxicating allure of the forbidden. I found myself seeking him out, inventing reasons to be in his vicinity. I would leave accidental notes on his car windshield, send cryptic messages that hinted at my longing. He responded with a mixture of amusement and intrigue. He seemed to enjoy the game, the subtle dance of seduction that played out between us. Soon, our clandestine meetings became more frequent. We would meet for lunch, for coffee, for late-night walks in the park. Our conversations grew deeper, more intimate. We shared secrets, dreams, and fears, a bond forming between us that transcended the physical. He was a captivating man, intelligent, passionate, and utterly unpredictable. He challenged my assumptions, pushed me to confront my own desires, and awakened a part of myself I never knew existed. But as our connection deepened, so did the cracks in my marriage. John, sensing the shift in my demeanor, became increasingly anxious. He tried to spend more time with me to rekindle the flame of our love, but it was too late. The fire that once burned brightly between us had long since extinguished. I no longer saw John as a lover, but as a stranger, a man trapped in the monotony of his own existence. My thoughts were constantly with Marcus, his touch, his laughter, the way his eyes sparkled when he looked at me. I found myself comparing John to Marcus, and the comparison was devastating. John, with his predictable routines and lack of passion, paled in comparison to Marcus, with his vibrant energy, intellectual curiosity, and insatiable appetite for life. Guilt gnawed at me. I felt like a betrayer of my vows, but the pull of Marcus was too strong to resist. He was a forbidden fruit, intoxicating and dangerous, and I craved every forbidden bite. One evening, as I lay beside John, his arm draped lazily around my waist, I felt a surge of resentment. I felt stifled, suffocated by the weight of my own hypocrisy. I yearned for freedom, for a life that was true to myself. I yearned for Marcus, for the passion, the adventure, the exhilarating sense of freedom that came with being in his arms. The realization hit me with the force of a tidal wave. I was in love with him. The thought was both terrifying and exhilarating. I was a married woman, a mother, a respectable member of society. How could I possibly be in love with another man? But the truth was undeniable. My heart belonged to Marcus, and there was nothing I could do to deny it. The weight of my betrayal began to weigh heavily on me. I knew I could no longer continue this charade. I had to make a choice, a difficult, life-altering choice that would inevitably shatter the fragile remnants of my marriage. The weight of my betrayal pressed down on me, a suffocating blanket of guilt and shame. I knew I could no longer live a lie. The charade was unsustainable, the constant juggling of my emotions and loyalties taking a toll on my sanity. One evening, as I sat across from John at the dinner table, the truth finally spilled out. The words tumbled out of my mouth, a torrent of confessions that I had been holding back for far too long. I told him about Marcus, about the clandestine meetings, about the passion that had ignited between us. I told him about the way Marcus made me feel alive, the way he had awakened a part of myself I never knew existed. John sat frozen, his face a mask of disbelief and pain. He stared at me, his eyes wide with a mixture of anger and hurt. You're in love with him," he finally managed to croak out, his voice hoarse with emotion. I looked down at my plate, unable to meet his gaze. "Yes," I whispered, the admission a confession of my own defeat. He rose from his chair, his face contorted in a grimace of pain. "After all these years," he asked, his voice trembling with anger, "after everything we've been through?" I looked up at him, tears welling in my eyes. "I'm so sorry, John," I pleaded. "I never meant to hurt you." But the damage was done. The words, once spoken, could not be taken back. The trust, once so strong, had been shattered beyond repair. The ensuing days were a blur of acrimony and recriminations. Arguments erupted, accusations flew, and the air in our home was thick with the stench of betrayal. John, understandably, was devastated. He withdrew into himself, his anger turning inward, a cold, bitter resentment simmering beneath the surface. I, on the other hand, felt a strange sense of liberation. The truth, though painful, had set me free. I was no longer bound by the shackles of a loveless marriage, a prisoner in my own gilded cage. But freedom, I soon discovered, came at a price. The divorce was messy and emotionally draining. The legal battles, the division of assets, the constant reminders of our failed marriage, it all took a toll on my emotional and financial well-being. My relationship with Marcus, initially a source of joy and excitement, also began to falter. The thrill of the forbidden had worn off, replaced by the realities of a new relationship. We tried to make it work, to build a life together, but the shadow of my past, the pain and resentment I carried with me, cast a long shadow over our happiness. The years that followed were a period of profound introspection. I grappled with the consequences of my choices, the pain I had inflicted on others, and the enduring impact of my betrayal. I learned to forgive myself, not for my actions, but for the pain I had caused. I learned to embrace the consequences of my choices, to accept responsibility for my own happiness. I also learned that freedom, true freedom, was not about breaking free from the constraints of marriage but about breaking free from the shackles of my own self-doubt, my own fear of happiness. Looking back, I can see that the experience, though painful, was ultimately a catalyst for growth. It forced me to confront my own desires, to rediscover my own identity, to embrace the woman I truly was. The affair with Marcus, though brief, had a profound impact on my life. It shattered the illusion of perfection, forced me to confront the realities of my own unhappiness, and ultimately led me down a path of self-discovery and personal growth. I am not the same woman I was before. The experience, though painful, has made me stronger, more resilient, more aware of my own needs and desires. I have learned to embrace the unknown, to embrace the risk of loving again, to cherish the precious moments of joy and connection. And though the scars of the past may never fully heal, I have learned to live with them, to carry them as a testament to my own strength and resilience. This experience, this tumultuous journey of love, betrayal, and self-discovery, has left an indelible mark on my soul. It has taught me that life is unpredictable, that love can be both a source of immense joy and profound pain. It has taught me that true freedom comes not from breaking free from societal expectations, but from breaking free from the chains of self-doubt and self-imposed limitations. And most importantly, it has taught me that even in the darkest of times, there is always the possibility of hope, of healing, of finding joy and love again. This is my story, a story of love, loss, and redemption. A story of a woman who dared to break free from the shackles of conformity, only to discover that true freedom lies within. I hope this story resonates with you.